What would happen to Earth if the sun suddenly disappeared? How long could we live in darkness? If the sun were to suddenly vanish, the effects would be felt immediately. Almost 50 years ago, a solar eclipse was visible in Kenya where I was working at the time, a total eclipse in the semi-desert 300 kilometers north of Nairobi. It was a remarkable experience. Not only did we witness the grandeur of a solar eclipse in a cloudless sky, but we also saw its effects on wildlife. A nearby zebra herd became agitated as darkness came hours early with the sun still high in the sky. The many birds flying about promptly became quiet as they settled down for the night. During the few minutes of near darkness, the temperature fell by 4 to 5 degrees Celsius. Without sunshine, there can be no photosynthesis. Crops would stop growing. Depending on the season, we might get one last crop, or not. Our herbivores would soon chew their way through the last remaining vegetation and begin to starve. We would soon begin to starve too. Without sunshine, there can be no photosynthesis. Crops would stop growing. We would soon begin to starve. Of course, Earth has a core of molten iron, and above that a mantle of molten rock. Some heat would filter through Earth's crust, keeping it warm for a time. Some people could burn wood and coal for warmth, but without food, we wouldn't survive long. If the sun disappears suddenly, total darkness will be observed on Earth after 8 minutes, the time it takes for its light to reach us. If darkness was the only factor, it would take a while for most life to vanish from Earth. However, there would also be a fall in temperature that would more rapidly make survival difficult. Since the sun is the center of gravity in our solar system, its disappearance would result in temporary anarchy among the remaining bodies, and after a few collisions, the system may find a new center. Perhaps Jupiter, or a new giant planet formed after a collision of Jupiter with other objects that orbited the sun. If Earth were lucky enough to avoid getting caught up in these collisions and didn't just fly off into space, it might start revolving around the new center. It depends on what you mean by disappeared. If the sun was still there, but just stopped emitting light and heat, we would stay in orbit. All of Earth would be in permanent darkness, the air and oceans would retain warmth for some time, but all life would eventually freeze to death. I am more worried about cold than darkness. Earth's surface air temperature has to be maintained in the vicinity of 15 degrees Celsius on average for life to survive. Destruction of planets would take place, because of the sudden loss of the sun's gravitational pull. Planets, including Earth, would begin moving away from their usual paths and could collide with other gigantic bodies, leading to their destruction. If the sun was no more, then Earth would be drawn to a new center of gravity. The gravity of Earth and the rest of the solar system would be affected and, with there being no constant energy supply from the sun, Earth would start drifting into space. The idea that life could be sustained indefinitely without the sun is a silly dream. Maybe in some sort of base, for instance, a dome with nuclear energy, humans could survive for some time. The good thing is that there wouldn't be much life to be threatened by nuclear waste, but there probably also wouldn't be any liquid water to cool the power system down. If you mean just the light of the sun going, all photosynthetic organisms, including plants and algae, would die. But if other types of energy were still coming from the sun, chemolithotrophic life would still survive, and humans could grow plants with artificial light. We would have to adapt to living in the dark, perhaps by wearing night vision goggles.